Welcome all. It's a real honour and privilege for me to introduce today's festival in honour of David Barker's science. I'm absolutely thrilled to see so many of you here, people who have travelled from so far and wide to join us on a very special occasion. For many from Southampton who have moved on, it's also a memory of years gone by, which I'm sure will tug at the heartstrings. Just to introduce the person that we're going to be celebrating the science of through the rest of today. David was born to a paternal engineer, his mother a concert cellist in 1938. He was educated at Oundle, and he loved biology as a schoolboy. His science masters would send him off to look at beetles and give him spare time. He was an expert negotiator, even at those early stages of his research life. He went to medicine at Guy's Hospital in London, and my reflection from the past was that Charles George, Anne Chamberlain, David Turner, who's with us today, were all around his dissection table and in his year at Guy's. Physical anthropology was his intercalated BSc, and for me, a bone doc, it was prescient that in 1962 David wrote the first of his Nature papers, and that was on testosterone and bone density. His PhD was completed in 1966, again anticipating the future, prenatal influences on subnormal intelligence. And if you look at one of these earlier photographs, you'll be able to see David, if you can, in the earlier stages of his career. He then succeeded in getting an MRC project grant in 1970 that took him to Makerere University in Uganda. And I have to say that this was about the time that my family migrated away from East Africa. And David found out, as he was discovering the link between mycobacterial ulcerans and Buruli ulcer, that Uganda was sadly not big enough for both Idi Amin and himself. And he actually ended up taking the wise course and moving back to this country. And Uganda's loss was actually Southampton's gain. He came to the University of Southampton, our founding Department of Epidemiology with Estlin Waters and Donald Atchison, and he went on with Donald in 1979 to the MRC Environmental Epidemiology Unit that he took on the directorship of in 1984. He then had a legendary research career that we're going to hear more about today. He showed ecologically with Clive the link between infant mortality geographically and cardiovascular death. He went on to discover the Hertfordshire records and show in individuals that relationship replicated. He coined the notion of programming. This has now become, this is an issue of time in 2010, it's now become commonly accepted as a notion in the etiology of non-communicable disease, and he was fittingly awarded a fellowship of the Royal Society in the 2000s. Over his period of tenure, the MRC unit, which started on stilts in 1982 with lots of car parking underneath it, gradually got filled out through the 90s and early 2000s to its position today. And you'll notice, as I point out repeatedly, that the empty directorial car parking space has persisted over those decades and enabled David to build the wonderful environment with Jan that they did at Manor Farm, that many of you that have joined us from abroad have spent happy days in. The work continues. You'll hear more about that in this afternoon's sessions, but we're just going through a quinquennial review at the moment in which the 5 programs that we address, bone and joint disease, sarcopenia, nutrition development and lifelong health in transitioning and developed populations, and musculoskeletal health and work, all retain a contact originally with David's science. So to today. We start with a series of presentations from international collaborators talking about the state of the developmental origins of health and disease. And then we move on to some of the international collaborations that David had with groups from around Europe, North America, and Africa. We then go on to some of the future directions of travel with the MRC unit and conclude with some words from Ian Cameron and Don Nutbeam. I just want to repeat my thanks to all of the speakers, all of you that have attended, our chairs who have shared wonderful memories with David and will introduce the sessions with their own reflections, and wish you a really good day to celebrate the science of this truly remarkable clinician investigator. Thank you very much.